타이 동네 삼바세티 다 타이 동네 디 다다다 레벨 하라 동네 삼바세마도체 감고말다 다다 다데 동네 시기 시서 요마 저 다다 디 타이 레벨 하이 동네 디 간데를 지어서죠 아니 치포와다 아니 동네 아니 보공베 동네 시지 숨시.
So looking at the desire, the deities of the desire realm, the suffering of the deities. So we've already looked at the deities of the celestial beings of the higher realms, but here looking at the suffering of the deities or celestial beings of the desire realm. So they have the three types of suffering, the suffering of dying and falling, the sufferings of anxiety, and the sufferings of being cut, gashed, killed, and vanished.
다 치표의 동의세티. 치표의 동의스 되니 대외 체사다 되니 토리야네. 치표의 동의에서 토리나양 네 대신 대다기 치표 동의 니니 대외체 대다선을 켜받는 비니 세규로 토리래도 세비기스 다 되니 셰송 받다라 알아 되베라라 롱저벌 중에 대화리 치표의 체 치대가 통하는 텔레주면서 다디 인지무 요리 마 시르비 깔이야 시갈 하고 들이야 니 따생 마소나가 부르철리스
So as the friendly letter says, although the deities have great pleasure in heaven, the suffering of dying there is even greater than that. The wise who understand this cease to create craving for the perishable heavens. Deities derive pleasure from indulging their sensual desires. Yet greater than this is the tremendous suffering they experience while dying, when they become aware of the 5 signs of death. So it's this great suffering that comes at the time of death, when they realize they're going to lose all the things, desires that they have.
제정마다 베나디나로 지제나 숨만나신 류지 카도 asa luji kando midu boju bata ani tenla me go mendo su chamalo rong shin ba nyam do ya ne khela tima cha bata lulani ngenje me bi ani du chung shin ta ba nyam do be ge da du chung o de de du zambe ta turi chibo sa jenchi chi de nga sta anju meeting le ya 엔 시갈라고 될라 말한 저기 저게 다 오당하고 자고야 손으로 간 주통마도야 손으로 안에 나서 우왕겠다 저 유용해 지대주수 용만나 신세적에 할리나양 아니 지금 저기 말한 저 나신다 지금 가서 류기 dunya들이 숙침부 용하는데 이내 따생들도 통한데 아니 세미나로 안에 마디고 차매지 용료레스
I forgot to mention before, and she also said that they have this strong grasping of permanence at the time of death too. So then just as this verse below says, their bodies turn an unattractive colour, their cushions become uncomfortable, their flower garlands wilt and their clothing smells, and unaccustomed sweat breaks out all over their bodies. And the 5 signs that signal the deities in heaven, foretelling their death and departure therefrom, are similar to the signs that foretell death for humans on earth. And so, as they're approaching death, they get all these signs, and then, they don't have the physical suffering like we do, like the elements and the senses declining and things, like the body getting weaker and so forth. But they have these other signs that then they grasp at permanence. And they suffer so much because they see the signs that they're going to leave that realm.
다른다 이버디 마시오 저 준비 보고하니 더 보고하세 거주자 suffering 디 말이에요. 이버디 왜?
Suffering of falling to lower.
어디도 와. 다디 이제 준비 쪼고다 배신 지금 타도 전생고 와게. 베나다 지금 타 나로리아 지금 시기체하다. 똑체하다. 왕당 체도 지금 통도 한 딜레데스 내가 총도 저기 디 통도 아니 신이 지금 sem나로 마대바다 뭐지보다 아 디데 용해도 요즘에 아니 보고 교회스 아니 시 텔레 동해대 이미 되어 묘스
So there's this suffering also of, that arises from the jealousy and the competitiveness that they have. So they look at other gods who have more power than them or who are stronger than them, who are still remaining around, and they get jealous and competitive towards that. And so they experience in this disturbed state of mind of suffering from that jealousy and competitiveness. And so the suffering of the four of the lower realms, they must take leave of the divine worlds. If their merit has run out, then powerless, they will become animals, hungry ghosts, or demons into hell.
Did not all anxieties cheat one. The around with the anxieties everywhere, around where. Around the anxiety the keyword.
But the deities of the desire around the Namsid suffering of anxiety too.
Anxiety says, right? Target the anxiety down, around the anxiety need that did do it. Sonam toa the tone, the son did Tado Chasurus to what? Right? These are the anxiety secret mission. When you see anxiety in God's realm, then you're just like, oh, what's happening there? I don't know what it's called, a kind of fear or anxiety or not. I'm not sure. It's not in the Tibetan. So I don't know. This is correct way of putting it.
So here in the God realm is talking about the merit, seeing the gods with more merit than them, and they have lesser merit, and then
a little bit of kind of jealousy is there. So they have more, which I have a little like this. So it's more like whatever you have, you are not really appreciating. So you are looking at somebody else merit, and then you are not rejoicing it. Actually, you're bringing a little bit of like jealousy. So then this becomes a discomfort. This is also part of suffering. In the book, in the Tibetan, it sounds like that. Yeah. Now, most of us, when we look in the movies, listen to the stories of the gods realm, it is definitely we are focusing more on the desire realm gods. Because in the Kasavata, something so Namju Manjugita Jigden Devagishi Marta, Jigding Nalone Tanda, and something Tampo, something you was something to Zubi Kabi, Tajiki Hagi, Kijishi on Lutambe, and Manjugi, Devegi, Kijishi machine, the Tushita Yomaba. So Koran, something Koranga, Ganda, Yabachachi. Dead in Sology, Duzabe, the Dugigi, Tadon, Transim, the Gigi Chison, the Tamalo, Maju, and the Demonolia, Toy, the Tamalo, the Villa, Dudua.
So, what we normally see in the movies is when they're presenting these types of gods, is the gods of the desire realms. Because when you look at the deities or the gods that abide in the meditative absorptions of the four concentrations, so there's these different levels. The first meditative absorption, second, third and fourth meditative absorption, they're so absorbed into their meditation that their minds aren't agitated by jealousy and so forth. They don't have those manifest afflictions and so forth. So when we see these presentations of different gods in the movies, they're depicting the ones of the desire realm. And so when we're talking about these meditative absorptions and these concentrations, they're not talking about the supramundane, they're talking about the worldly concentrations.
you find it, if there's nothing epic, some kind of a fight, or some kind of attractiveness, all this, if you cannot talk about this in a God's realm, then the God's realm sounds like a little bit boring, isn't it? So because as looking from our perspective of view, we are in a desire realm, we want to see in a kind of better form in the desire, as a the desire. So this is what we put. That's why, like in the Avengers, like Thor and all this. So they are so occupied with all this jealousy, anger, all this. So this is how we wanted to see. But if you look at the one God who is so peaceful, absorbed into their meditation, so peaceful, it's not our way of admiring the God's realm. So this is quite funny, isn't it? So here it talks about all the suffering. This is very important. This in the desire realm, in the God, they also suffer. Then the third one, because now remember that we talked about the demigods, they always fight each other. So there is always sometimes the gods win, sometimes the demigods win. So there is always this kind of battle happening out there. So then the third one is jejing dila sube dungyene hana lama yinda tabana yangla da ningla chebana lu cheba da sube dungyene yong de ngo chebana ni chila yangla lama jejing dibana chil jejing cho.
So I didn't read the suffering of anxiety. Let's just read that just for an image with the next part. So deities with vast stores of merit gain the most desirable objects. Upon seeing them, deities of lesser merit become anxious and experience great anguish and pain on this account. So that's what we've just discussed. And now moving on to the suffering of being cut, gashed, killed and banished. When deities fight with demigods, they undergo the pain of having their limbs and minor extremities cut off, having their bodies split apart and being killed. When their heads are cut off, they die, but their other limbs regenerate after being cut off or gashed, and they survive. As regards to banishment, when there is a battle, the more powerful deities expel the weaker deities from their homes.
That's very funny. It's there. It's the same story, maybe in a little bit better situation, but it's there. It's there. Yeah. That the casa juba di serve. Ta dire do ta lo cha ba. To show na bi rangi ne to cha os. Ta so gi tam des di dom chi bu chi debe thane khayin ba denan debe semme den debe de cha rim ta be nangi mi se gyu ba kangi semyen gyu ba da tel de wa khala yu yingme semla kichik jang wangche pane ma yinbe namyin tube da ni chen namyin shiwo min ju di lungchen bawi chabayi meni shingdan che da chung she da ne su yuring ma lenbe nebe mi chu se da chung she chung su os ta di long bo che ta di dom ni ba di ta ndebe gi ne hadin de ina ani kam koma 또 수도 수면이라니 파도죠 근데를 주요했으나 컴 고만 수도 수미기 사남라 등에 대다 매라 다 가지고 직세바도 또 받아 나와다 차와도 요 말에데 왜냐 녀모바는 대신 저거다 젤라 치포하다면서 내라랑 매베 대다장 내니 렌지 등에 보고스 내라랑 매바스도 전에 아니 고랑 주기 다지기 투주 가지고 편지기래 가수 지금 방에는 대강 대봐도 되네 something 두조랑 시 냠네 아니 바뀌어버려요. 소바도 라자 지금 지장 가르친스나 아니 고랑주 깨발려야지 레다 요모이 파르게버리 레다 요모 그 거리 샤샤도 될래야 그 체주로 봐. 제장 내려랑 하면비 대다게 내니 엔 동나와 요리스.
So we don't need to read the following quote from Vasubandhu. If we move, that's the presentation of the suffering of the desire on God. So now moving to look at the suffering of the deities of the form and formless realms. So it says, the deities of the highest realms, the form and formless, though they escape these sufferings, nevertheless die in possession of afflictions and obscurations, because they have no control over their future dwelling place. Even they suffer on account of dysfunctional tendencies. So the deities of the form and formless realms don't have the same sufferings as the desire realm gods and us and so forth. They don't have the suffering of heat and cold and thirst and these kind of physical sufferings. However, they have the sufferings of the having afflicted minds, and where it says they have no control over their future dwelling place, because it's all depending on their karma, when they're projecting karma for that life as a form or formless realm deity. As the projecting karma, the potency of that karma comes to exhaustion, then when it runs out, then they have to leave that realm. So they have no control, because they're under the control of the projecting karma which projected that life in that realm. And so then they have all the anguish and things that recognizing that they're going to leave that. So then they don't have control of they can't stay in that realm for as long as they want, because they have the projecting karma, and because they suffer on account of the dysfunctional tendencies. So they're having the seeds for that as well.
제 장았다 디 나로라 단다 디 송요 말해 봐도 딱 배나 소금 소매 라와도 아니 나가타이 남시타이 진영매 시지기 셈데 토쇼질레고도 점베 안티도 디나로라 다지기 셈데마 손에 두시 샤서 지에메 토네도 제냐버 샤도 점베 아니 배가 좀 손에 다 되게 녀버 좋은도 점베 아니 배 들려야 아니 지금 something이 되었어야 돼. 다 something이 되어도 쉬우지 뭐 쉬우지도 점베 안 들려야 좀 된대기 아니 가르송도 쓰도 점베 아니 감 고만남수 아니 가수지기 아니 곰데 땜바다 아니 그 가서 그래 두시디 도스시지 땜부차고도 점베 고 아주마손에 곰 템포리티 두시디 미세버스 두시 미세버에 봐도 저게 두시 매버 차요 말스 셈나로라 단도 두시 매 삼다 또 세대디가 지르마도 두시지 요르스 제장가 두시 라고 매버 다가랑기 참몽 뭐뭐 손네 아니 두시 라고 매버 다가랑 아니 침내 대원도 좀베 안 두시메 삼에 대대고 좀 저레스 안 텔레야 산제 좀 된데기 스타 안 두시 탐제는 아니 초도 주거든 가르레스도 잠베 아니 좀 된데기 두시메바데 마레시메스 두시메세 가르메스 마랑주 따다다 동반이 두시디 켜지 동반이 두시디 나고라 안 가리네야 코랑기 왜도 뭐 두고 치게 매봐도 통화야지 다 초도 주거든 디다 사람도 요 말에 마음바라야 토시지 부도 깨차비 쉬고라 시지네 마용도 잠베 딘디기 셈딜 쉬고 직냐버 샤시니 미당 다 미딘디지 다치기 딘데 라유니 마 깨지 미유를 레원도 잠베 딘디지 간사들이야 다음에 최대한도 잠베 로일 추마토야다 아니 인중이네 깨카르지 요레스 그래서 딜레온드.
So although it's not found here in the text, actually in the formless realms, there are the four states of the
Nangatai, Namshitai, Jiyame, Siji.
So sorry if the translation is not exactly right, but there's no space, no consciousness, no discrimination or nothingness, and then the peak of existence, the peak of existence. Those are the 4 absorptions of the formless realm. And the Buddha said that however long they abide in those higher realm absorptions, like the peak of existence, in the meditative equipoise, although it's very stable, they feel that they have this no discrimination. They think that they're meditating on a state of non-discrimination or no discrimination, where nothing appears, nothingness. But what the Buddha actually said is it's not actually a fully qualified non-discriminated meditation. It's just an unclear one. The discrimination is not clear. So although it's very stable and there are no cause discriminations, there's still this subtle discrimination there, and it's unclear. And so what the Buddha said is this is not the highest form of discrimination, the highest form of meditation on that. The highest discrimination that you can meditate on is the discrimination of emptiness. And that is not found in the peak of cyclic existence. And what happens is, what the Buddha explained is that when the beings who are in this state of the peak of existence, when they leave that state and fall down to one of the lower absorptions, or a lower state, because of their strong habituation with that meditation and what they think is a non-discrimination, then actually their minds are not susceptible, it's not easy for them they're not ripe or ready to hear the teachings on emptiness, they're not ready to meditate on emptiness or cultivate this renunciation. So I was trying to think of the English one. They're not ripe to develop renunciation because of their thorough habituation with this higher state.
Yeah. 어디 디르셔다? 오케이. 다 딘데 shesunso 대들 링암 투기 로완남 is 링아 세두점베 라미 라마인다 라니 찌르지베 링아체 나 투스두점베 라다 라마인데 소소지고이나 투차부드 로완남이 찌도 수수이 동네 삼네 코알이 중앙에 제나 대달기 코위 유 관계 제념비 귤로 똑바 중베 따디 단답하도 뭐지 지금 우주 담 시에데 가르쳐들으시나 랑신기 딘디기다 지부들 샤발로베나 아니 규디 다 컨데스pon부로 있어야지 규디 가르기 지기 요래서데 제가 되문이 답지 뿌다고 싶어 정도 잡으니 신이 똑바 중베 있어야 된다.
So coming to the end of this section, reflect in this way. Reflecting this way on the general and specific sufferings of the 5 or 6 types of beings. So the 5 types of beings is when you condense or classify together the gods and the demigods in 5. So the general and specific suffering of the 5 or 6 types of beings. Then, when you have become disgusted with cyclic existence, you will wonder about its causes. What causes cyclic existence? So this is the thing, when we really give up this clinging to, when we've had enough of the of cyclic existence, then this really genuine question arises: what is the cause of cyclic existence? You get this really genuine, authentic doubt coming up.
Now it does not ask like, oh, I want to practice emptiness. When you have strong awareness of this cause, the result, then you will always come to the point how this is, what is the cause of this existence. That's why always I feel, and my teacher tells me, and what Buddha has taught his teachings in this style, where not rushing towards the antidote, but more being serious on the nature of the suffering, and then after that you will just have some kind of awareness and a big question, what is the cause of the suffering? Still we are not rushing, we being very careful. So normally what we do is, once we feel little bit of part of the suffering, if you have a quite difficult situation in family, then you will say, I wanted to become a monk. I wanted to say goodbye to my place. I want to go to Nepal. I want to go to India to search for Dharma. And then you end up in some center and some kind of monastery. Oh, there's a full of surprise there. You walked into another samsara, but you feel like, wow, this is so good. Then wait for a few days, then it's here. Then you feel like, oh, I wasted my whole life in here. It's how coming. So now because you didn't go through this by one and then didn't ask this, what causes cyclic existence? Good, now we have complete talking about a bit of suffering. Yet now we are going to talk about cause of the suffering. So it's more now a little bit smoother, okay? Little more smoother. Yeah, 다 동행이 주 가르기 최선세기 다 신의 셈 나로리아 초와들이 제원도 아니 니보 꾸중 코비 주름 상부당 예스 될어야 아니 숨이야 제제 아니 담보 뭐 제비치 디 레소스 니 치포데 인zam제 출로시 다디 숨시 예스 니 담보디 무코도비 줄라 레도니 모니유 예스 아니 뉴몬도 조레스 뉴몬 메나 마르사벨레 탕 데버 가수 여장 ane lenda sala sogo mebe sabing yugo midugo shindu ane leda hinji cheje mebe dungi yugo midugo chidans ta azu masone sabing kazu yobe inaya tel su dijeki nyomo tang de chago sogo de zo mebe ina ane le kazu yike to o dig tang azu focus di le ganga shira samtang go mares ta di shortcut chapta 레를 상담하고 말했어. 주로 뭔고지야? 레코랑 가까이 답이지. 예수지냐. 요래. 네 마치스. 달레 강의 수 대행기 아니 영어들은 예보네 답이지. 예수 답답지들이.
So once we've really gotten this genuine curiosity, was wanting to know what are the causes of cyclic existence, having reflected on all the suffering, then we move on to look at the origin or cause of suffering. And so, reflecting on the process of cyclic existence in terms of its origin, the origin of cyclic existence is explained in three parts. How the afflictions arise, how you thereby accumulate karma, and how you die and are reborn. And so, first, how the afflictions arise. Karma and the afflictions are both necessary as causes for the creation of cyclic existence, but the afflictions are primary. For just as a seed without moisture and soil, etc., will not produce a sprout, so in the absence of afflictions, even though you have accumulated immeasurable karma in the past, there will be no sprout of suffering, because the karma lacks the necessary cooperative conditions. So here the emphasis is on the afflictions, because no matter how many karmic seeds we have in our continuum, however many seeds we have, unless they need the afflictions, the cooperative condition of the afflictions to ripen those seeds. Okay, so without the afflictions that will ripen and nurture and nourish those seeds to bring them to fruit, those karmic seeds cannot ripen. Okay, so the emphasis here, when we're looking at the origin of suffering and origin of samsara, is if the emphasis is on the afflictions. So many other traditions really focus on trying to purify the karma as the emphasis, right? But here we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the afflictions, because it's all the afflictions in our continuum that ripen those karmas to give rise to the results.
This one? So now, in a example, when we do harvest, right? So if you put the seed, all the seeds in the farm, in the field. Then it will start growing. But which one grow faster is all the causes and conditions, like the heat with the warmth and the water and wherever the fertilize, all these are in the closer to this seed will ripen faster. Similarly, if you go into a restaurant, you have enough money to buy a food, but then you are shown this menu, and there are like almost 60 dishes in there. But then all this with this the money or the merit, you are capable to buy all this food. But the closer you want is, it depends on your own desire. You will say what you would like to have. So you like, oh, this pasta looks so good. Okay, I will try the pasta. So your desire really pushes you to get that, and all other are like a seed. So you can buy that, but why did you point to that? Because of your desire. So similarly here also, when we have so many kind of karma, which are like a seed, but why we are getting specific? This one is through your desire. That's if we put that in a simple language. Okay. So now, if you don't want to ripen this is the big question here. So then what we need to bring is, now you need to see what is that kind of how does the connection between the attachment and which it ripens that seed. That you really need to understand this connection. So then this is why in this latter part where it says la sota dine nyomo yunas le ngar sawa me jang de ta di lo ne ko ya nyomo me na ngar di lo o di lo tambu ne ko do bi gyu le da nyomo ni gwe jang nyomo di so lo sar ba nyomo me na ngar sa be le tang le de ba lo ju ba o de so yin jang le da sa la so me be sa bin gyu gu mi du be shin do le la ten ji che jen me be dungingi nyugu midubi chida nyomo yena le ngarasawa mejan tematalo sodo dunu kumbuchimali chiru wos namdeng di lo mo che che ta dine di wo lo china ti chir nyomo bigi nyembo tembo ke chelas karchen ta nyomo nyembo tembo wozo byores teya nyomo shebala ra lebe nyomo namla kebar chawos ta nyomo ge namshala kebar chawos nyela lamsang 담에 또 비시를 조쇼 미다고 공주 소금도와 알람상 뇨모가 남샤를 캐버쳐 있어. 뇨모가 남샤를 캐버쳐. 그디 녀라 담에 또 비시를 다 미다고 소금도 조 다시 소금도와 녀라 동에 방도의 선물래 동에 유를 지주시 동에 유를 지주시도 양 뇨모가 남샤도 저 장고도 있어. 선물래 왔어.
Okay, so karma and the afflictions are both necessary as causes for the creation of cyclic existence, but the afflictions are primary. For just as a seed without moisture, soil, etc., will not produce a sprout, so in the absence of afflictions, even though you have accumulated immeasurable karma in the past, there will be no sprout of suffering, because the karma lacks the necessary cooperative conditions. And now this point is really important. A further reason afflictions are primary is because even without previously accumulated karma, if afflictions are present, you immediately accumulate new karma and will thereby appropriate aggregates in the future. And so then after the quotation we have, consequently, Consequently, it is very important to rely on a remedy for the afflictions. Moreover, since this requires understanding the afflictions, you should become knowledgeable about the afflictions. So again, when we recognizing the resultant suffering that we don't want, the cause of the afflictions, then the way to overcome that, we don't jump straight into to realize selflessness and realize impermanence, or to understand selflessness and impermanence. First, we need to understand about the afflictions themselves.
This one? Do. Say that in English, people will understand.
Listening to that, my question is, for example, when there is to give rise to the rebirth, there is we are rebirth, we come to the earth because of affliction and karma. And now, if we get rid of the affliction, the past karmas, does that means if we get rid of the affliction, do we attain liberation without needing to fulfill the past karmas?
So what happens to the past karmas?
Yes, question can be like, what happens to the past karma, or other way around is once affliction is removed, instantly liberate.
Well, karma is removed. What do you mean, like the inflections? Oh, okay. Yes. So no more inflections, no more attachment. That means not for temporary. It's like now getting rid of that's called liberation, right? So then there is no inflection, means no more mapche.
So the affliction here means that there are no afflictions that will ripen the karma, or bring the karma to fruition.
So it's more like now you are holding to the seed, but you don't have all this fertilizer, the water and everything. You don't have. So this is just a seed. So it's like now you don't need to work anymore. So that's good news. So otherwise, what we normally, some practices are like we need to work not only to purify the affliction, but we emphasize the purifying the karma. So then the Buddha himself said, if the consciousness, the contaminated consciousness is there, then it's the base for all the karmas to happen. So we need to bring down the contaminated the consciousness. So then there is no more to bring the karma. So that is like you have a seed in your hand, right? Seed in your hand. If you have a seed of rice in your hand, you won't say, I have a rice in my hand. You will say, the seed, now I cannot do anything. But if you have you think that all you have the causes and condition to grow this seed, then you will say, once you put that seed into the field, you will say, I have planted the rice now. Similarly. So now this is the one way of looking into the liberation. That's the most battle is if you cannot take down the attachment from the root of it, then there will be a place for you to bring the seed once again, the karma once again. Yeah. Odiche. Datine di du zambe sibe di te ti chiri nyomo bi nyembo temba kechela ta nyembo tenguris nyembo temba kechela tin nyomo shebala ra lebe nyomo na keba chawo ta keba chena kandere chena dilashis nyomo ngosoma nyomo sin de kares te jidar ki rimba de kares nyomo bi ju kares nyomo bi nimi kares ota di shi shengores 다 당보 용모지 진행이 분들의 최강 중앙나 라도 모시비 진행이 중앙데 대중의 심규 규 라도 모시고 중앙나 용모비 진행도 답변 심규 모시고 제거슬라 그러와 심규 규 모시고 제거스 다 심규 규 모시고 제스야 된다 녀로 사고를 배나 콘도선도 지켜오나 심규 모시고 제거 된대래 다 상모되고 고용과 당배이나 되샤기 심기 모시브 제도도 슬라토 다 되네녀라 차르차쇼 가르잖아 얘기 심디 디치게 미과간도 진사지라나 대양 심기 시기면도 세지 디 진사나 텔레시제라고 저자나 어디다 디스크리미네이션 세 두시지도 스치 레소나 되게 맞으면 뭐 기비쳐도 다 딜레페 차라고 쉬우지 체원도 잠배 아니 다 아주 마선에 타지도 진짜데 매브스도 세도 잠베 아니 저 담에 또 샤르게 파도 아니 야지 모두나 아니 아주 가서 그래 심규 들도도 세 그렇게 이제 디버도 그러고
So consequently it is very important to rely on a remedy for the afflictions. Moreover, since this requires understanding the afflictions, we should become knowledgeable about the afflictions. So there are 4 parts to this, 4 ways to become knowledgeable about the afflictions. So identifying the afflictions, recognizing what are the afflictions, the order in which they arise, and then the causes, what bring about the afflictions, and the faults and the problems that the afflictions bring. And so first, the identifying the afflictions, as Arya Asanga's Compendium of Knowledge gives a general definition of an affliction, stating, an affliction is defined as a phenomenon that when it arises, it is disturbing in character, and that through arising, it disturbs the mind stream. So thus when it is produced, it disturbs the mind stream. So that's the general definition, or the general characteristic of what an affliction is. When it arises, it disturbs our peace of mind. It disturbs our peace of mind. Now for us it's easy to see how anger disturbs our peace of mind, right? And if we can be flexible about it, we can also see how our desire, our attachment also disturbs or agitates our mind, right? But what's more difficult to see is how the very fact of us just holding an object, like with discrimination, holding on to an object, then that itself is bringing a disturbance of the mind, disturbing our peace of mind, this discrimination of holding this like real object. So that shows what we need to do to overcome our afflictions, to stop seeing that the afflictions disturb our peace of mind. The way to bring the peace of mind is to realize the selflessness of persons.
This one?
This one.
That now it will come to that presentation. That tambo desha to kill the zambe, and a chiang nangi you do you do one ming, and then Jesu chapa this, and then perna gel num shubo yung kawa shindu, tenya rangi mibala shenjing cheba, migwateta telkawa, do but junity, de zambe, diang sem mashibas.
So moving on to the specific definitions of the 10 afflictions, as follows: attachment. So attachment means noticing a pleasant or attractive external or internal object and desiring it. When attachment clings to its object and grows stronger, it is hard to tear yourself away from the object, just as it is difficult to remove oil which is soaked into a cloth. So if we think about it, we can see how when we have this attachment in our own minds that it does disturb our peace of mind, right? From our own experience we can see that.
다니바디 콘로들이 콘로디기 젤레당 다 콘로디 간데지레스라나 뭔지 제공들 심진 남당 동해바다 천다 참말로서 동해기 내나가 민이 꾼이 나르심바 심진지고 말 다 메달 미초 천다 참말로서 동해기 내나가 민이 꾼이 나르심바 심지무 아니 심디 개원도 좀 심디 지금 남상코라 지금 마대바지 주무 유 대나라야 never chawa sembo sto kondo lewo do jambe dilegu yobade ngajda sebshe to yoba.
So hostility or anger means observing the sources or origins of the sources of suffering, such as living beings and pain and weapons and thorns, and giving rise to harsh, tormented mind that contemplates harming these objects. So this is the function of anger and the nature of anger or hostility. So it's not just observing other living beings, other sentient beings, but we can get angry at anything basically, right? So the sources of suffering can be living beings, pain, weapons and thorns and so forth. And so it gives rise to this harsh, tormented mind, and then we get angry at it, and it disturbs our peace of mind, right? And we contemplate harming these objects. So we can all see, we all know from our own experience when anger arises in our continuum, this hostility, that it functions like this, and it disturbs our peace of mind, right?
Tatene ngajedi. Ta ngajedi jigdal tendes. Tende chia nangi tomenda sangya mingne semkhampate. 토요 넘버지도 주고 워스도다 먼저 가제스에 돼 직들 된데서 직들스도 또 조디 대시 도듀르 제외나 아 신이도 조 냥하다 네세에 조를 상체 아니 얘기 취 얘기 삼로 얘기 디세에 돼 쉬고지기 될야 배 지기 따보다 땡부 진세 안 될야 야고 큐디 냥바 예디 야세 samlo도 주제로에도 정말로 안에 될래야 와기시고리스.
So third one is pride. So pride means observing either internally or externally qualities that are high or low or good or bad, and based on the rarefied view of the perishing aggregates, allowing your mind to become inflated, you assume an aspect of superiority. So in the Tibetan, it immediately says that pride is based on this rarefied view of the perishing aggregates. Without going on to explain that in detail right now, basically what it's meaning is just this sense of I, me, I and mine, and holding them to be like the best, thinking that we're better and others are worse, or no, my things are better and other people's things are worse, or lesser. So it's just holding oneself as more important and better, and looking down on others. So this sense of pride is like this, like we is holding ourselves as better than others, like allowing your mind to become inflated, you assume an aspect of superiority. So this is the pride that we have in our mind.
So this pride, normally now the first and the second about the attachment and the anger, we really don't need to discuss much how that is, it disturbs our mind, takes away our peace. The pride, it will be one serious matter, or it will be very personal for some people who really want to practice, who really want to get a realization. Because the pride is where it stops you learning from someone. So that's why when we make a prostration, so every time Buddha said, when you are going to give a teaching, you have to make a prostration to this position where you are going to hold and give this teaching, because this teaching itself is something that you can tame your mind. So this is the position where you are going to hold. You make this homage, prostration. Yeah. So this is incredible, because in one sutra where there are so many levels of the pride. But just wanted to listen to the Dharma, wanted to practice Dharma. That doesn't mean you want a realization. Because in the one sutra, the Buddha, one of the Buddha was giving a teaching, and then there is one lady who is the maid of one queen, and then she listens to the Buddha's teaching, and she goes back to this queen and deliver this message what Buddha was giving a teaching on. And then the lady really has a huge devotion to Buddha, and she really wants to practice. For a long time she was listening to the Buddha's teaching through her maid. And then because she is married to a non-Buddhist king, which she does not want to bring any conflict. So then she is such a great being, so she knows kind of now all the things what Buddha has taught. I've been doing it very seriously for a long time. Now I really feel now the realization has to come. I have this kind of certainty. So what is really what is the blockage? So then she sends a message through her maid, and then when the maid requests Buddha and asks the question on behalf of the queen, then Buddha said, normally how do you give this message to her? How do you sit? How she sits? Buddha asked this very specifically. So she said, the queen will sit on her throne, and then she will sit on the one cushion and delivers this message to her. And then Buddha said, maybe when you go back, you sit on the queen's throne, and then queen makes a prostration to you and give this teaching. And let's see what happens. So when the most beautiful part, it's like queen does not have one slight pride that she cannot do it. It never occurs in her mind like, oh, I'm a queen. How can I make the prostration to this maid? Never. She puts there, and she really sees her as a Buddha himself and make a prostration. At that moment, she got the realization. So now we can see it's not about the realization only, but it's more like anything that somebody really wants to give you a piece of advice. How do you appreciate? If you don't bring your pride down, you will never appreciate any kind of advice. So this is how we need to bring the pride down. So not only the pride stops our realization, but it also disturbs our mind a lot. So this is one thing that how it comes into the number 3. Okay, so we stop here now. We go for lunch and then continue with the number 4. Okay.
Om Saji Bhagi Jaji Nidasam Vira Linji Nide Gevadi Sanje Shindu Nide Vavai Choge Nanda Jina Sheba Jo Jetsin Lame Guze Ratenjin Nanga Tene Joju Gepada Losan Tembe Deme Sazumbi Dove Minza Datu Negyo Ji Idam Guru Namanda Gamniya Taya
Mi